Cameron. I have a question.
Yes? What is it, Miku?
Can you read me a story?
Sure, why not?
Thanks, my little one.
Oh, it's no problem, my blue-haired angel. In fact, I think you might like the story. Or should I say, stories?
Oh boy, I can't wait to hear it.
Oh, don't you worry, my blue-haired angel. Once we get into these stories, you'll be very interested.
What you got there, little one?
Oh, this? Well, this is the story I'm going to be reading you.
What's it called?
It's called The Railway Series, my blue-haired angel.
The Railway Series?
Of course. But to be more specific, this is the Railway Series of Thomas the Tank Engine.
Who's he?
Well, Miku, he is a friend of mine. And he's the one I work with.
Wow, how interesting.
Yep. And together, we work on a magical island called Sodor.
Wow, sounds like a wonderful place. I would love to visit it.
It is a wonderful place, surrounded by beautiful blue seas, and has fields of green and sandy yellow beaches. There are rivers, streams, and lots of trees where the birds sing. There are windmills and a coal mine, and docks where visitors to the island arrive. And not to mention, the island also has lots and lots of railway lines. And someday, Miku, you just might be able to visit it.
You really think so, Cameron?
Positive, Miku. Very, very positive. Now then, with all that out of the way, how's about we get to the story, huh, Miku?
Oh, yes, please, Cameron. I want to see what happens in the story you're reading to me tonight.
Well then, let's get started, shall we? Here, have a look at this, Miku.
Is that the map of the island, Cameron?
Sure is.
It looks amazing.
I know. Now here's something that's interesting. Now, this particular island is pretty much between the Isle of Man and the coast of the mainland, which is Britain.
Is that your friend Thomas himself?
Yep.
Wait, who's this man here in the text below?
Huh? Oh, him? That's the author. He's the one who created the books. Most likely the Railway Series, I should say.
He made all these stories.
Well, not exactly all of them. You see, in one point of his life, he stopped making the Railway Series and decided to retire. And his son, Christopher, actually continued on for him. Which, the last book was made in, the early 2000s.
Very interesting. Is there a picture of him?
Oh, yes. There's one on the next page. Let me get to it. Ah, here it is.
That's Mr. Audrey.
Yes, it is, my blue-haired angel. That's the very man who created the Railway Series.
He looks like a very nice man.
Indeed, he was. It says here that his full name is Wilbert Vere Audrey, and he was born on June 15th, 1911. He's the son of the Reverend Vere Audrey, vicar of Emfield near Rosemary in Hampshire. And it also says here, from the first, young Wilbert had a passion for steam engines.
Kind of like you, Cameron.
Well, you're not wrong there, my blue-haired angel. I do have a passion for steam engines. Well, should I say steam locomotives, that is. Anyways, it also says here that young Wilbert loved to meet and chat to local railwaymen, and also to play with the model railway his father had built in the garden, and to pore over his father's copies of the railway magazine.
Sounds like he had a wonderful childhood.
Then, when Wilbert's brother, George, was born, the Audreys moved to Box in Wiltshire, near the Great Western Railway's main line from Paddington to Bristol. And here's something that's interesting. While he was living there, and he quotes,
Lying in bed as a child, I would hear a heavy goods train coming in and stopping at Buck Station, and 3 whistles crowing for a banker, a tank engine which would come out of his little shed to help the goods train up the gradient.
Interesting.
There was no doubt in my mind that steam engines all had definite personalities.
Really? How so?
just you keep listening, and you'll see what he's talking about.
I would hear them snorting up the grade, and little imagination was needed to hear the puffings and pantings of the 2 engines, the conversation they were having with one another. I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. Yes, you can, yes, you can, yes, you can.
Do you understand it now, Miku?
I do.
That's good to hear. So, anyways, Wilbur went to Donsty School in Wiltshire, then to Oxford. When he left Oxford, he taught at St. George's School in Jerusalem, where he met his future wife, Margaret Emily Whale. Returning to England in 1936, he was ordained deacon at Winchester Cathedral and became a curate at Odiham in Hampshire.
Interesting. Very interesting.
It sure is, Miku. It sure is. 2 years later, he married Margaret, and in 1940, their first child, Christopher, was born, followed by 2 daughters, Veronica in 1943 and Hilary in 1946. Now, when Christopher was 2, he was confined to bed with the measles.
Oh dear, the poor boy.
But luckily for him, he has Wilbert, his father. Wilbert entertained him with a story about a little engine who was sad, and his name was Edward.
How sweet of him. He was a very nice father to little Christopher, wasn't he?
He sure was, Miku. Christopher loved to hear the story of Edward again and again, and eventually his father wrote it down and illustrated it with simple line drawings. Then stories about Gordon and Henry followed, and Margaret encouraged Wilbur to send the books to a publisher. Now, how's about we get on to the story? We've probably done enough history.
Yeah, I'm feeling really excited to read this book with my little one.
Alright then, let's get to it. Here's the first set of stories that I'll be reading to you tonight, Miku. It's called The 3 Railway Engines, and it will star 3 engines, which it says in the title, which are Edward, Gordon, and Henry.
Oh goody, I can't wait to read it.
Our first story within this set is called Edward's Day Out. Fun fact, this is the first story that Wilbur told Christopher, actually.
Interesting, very interesting.
Now then, let's begin. Once upon a time, there was a little engine called Edward. He lived in a shed with 5 other engines. They were all bigger than Edward and boasted about it.
"The driver won't choose you again,"
They said.
"He wants big, strong engines like us."
They sound really mean to Edward.
Yeah, pretty much. Now, Edward had not been out for a long time. He began to feel sad.
Poor little engine, I feel sorry for him.
Don't worry, Miku. There's hope for him. Just listen. Just then, the driver and fireman came along to start work. The driver looked at Edward. "Why are you sad?" he asked. "Would you like to come out today?" "Oh, yes, please," said Edward. So the fireman lit the fire and made a nice lot of steam. Then the driver pulled the lever, and Edward puffed away. "Beep, beep," he whistled. "Look at me now." The others were very cross to being left behind. Talk about irony, huh, Miku?
Yeah.
Away went Edward to get some coaches,
Be careful, Edward.
said the coaches.
Don't bump and bang us like the other engines do.
So Edward came up to the coaches very, very gently, and the shunter fastened the coupling,
Thank you, Edward.
said the coaches.
That was kind. We are glad you're taking us today.
Then they went to the station where the people were waiting. "Beep, beep," whistled Edward. "Get in quickly, please." So the people got in quickly, and Edward waited happily for the guard to blow his whistle and wave his green flag.
A guard. They call the conductor.
Well, they are here in the States, but over there, they sometimes do call them conductors, but it's actually, in their terms, a guard. But still, it's the same role as a conductor, anyways.
I see. Very interesting stuff, Cameron.
Thank you. So, he waited and waited. There was no whistle, no green flag. Beep, 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 beep. Where is that guard? Edward was starting to get anxious. The driver and fireman asked the station master, "Have you seen the guard?" "No," he said. They asked the porter, "Have you seen the guard?"
Yes, last night.
said the porter. Edward began to get cross. "Are we ever going to start?" he said. Just then, a little boy shouted,
Here he comes!
and there was the guard running down the hill with his flags in one hand and a sandwich in the other. I know, it's ridiculous, huh? The guy ran onto the platform, blew his whistle, and jumped into his van. Edward puffed off. He did have a happy day. All the children ran to wave as he went past, and he met old friends at all the stations. He worked so hard that the driver promised to take him out again the next day. "I'm going out again tomorrow," he told the other engines that night in the shed. "What do you think of that?" But he didn't hear what they thought, for he was so tired and happy that he fell asleep at once.
What happy ending for this story. I'm liking it so far, Cameron.
Well, I'm glad you are. Now, shall we head on to the next story?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Calm down, Miku. This next story that we'll be reading tonight is called Edward and Gordon. Now, this will be the introduction to Gordon to you, of course. Now, one of these engines in Edward's shed was called Gordon. He was very big and very proud,
You watch me this afternoon, little Edward,
he boasted.
as I rush through with the express. That will be a splendid sight for you.
Just then, his driver pulled the lever,
Goodbye, little Edward.
said Gordon as he puffed away.
Look out for me this afternoon.
Gordon sounds like a hotshot character.
He certainly does, Miku. Edward went off too, to do some shunting. Now Edward liked shunting. It was fun playing with freight cars. He would come up quietly and give them a pull. Oh! Screamed the freight cars.
Whatever is happening?
You liked my impression of the freight cars?
Yes, I knew, Cameron. It's so funny.
Well, prepare yourself, because there's more where that came from, Miku.
Oh, boy.
Then he would stop, and the silly freight cars would go bump into each other. They cried again. Edward pushed them until they were running nicely, and when they weren't expecting it, he would stop. One of them would be sure to run onto another line. Edward played until there were no more freight cars, and then he stopped to rest.
Sounds like he had fun.
He certainly did. Presently, he heard a whistle. Gordon came puffing along, very slowly and very crossly. Instead of nice shining coaches, he was pulling a lot of very dirty coal cars.
Some splendid sight he was, say, Cameron.
Yeah. Now here's what Gordon had to say about pulling this train.
A goods train, a goods train, a goods train.
He grumbled.
The shame of it, the shame of it, the shame of it.
He went slowly through, with the coal cars clattering and banging behind him. Edward laughed and went to find some more freight cars. Soon afterwards, a porter came and spoke to his driver.
Gordon can't get up the hill. Will you take Edward and push him, please?
Oh, that doesn't sound good.
They found Gordon halfway up the hill and very cross. His driver and fireman were talking to him severely, You're not trying, they told him.
I can't do it,
said Gordon.
The noisy freak can't hold the engine back so. If there are coaches, clean, sensible things that come quietly, now that would be different.
Now he's just being lazy, that Gordon.
I couldn't agree more, Miku. Then Edward's driver came up. We've come to push, he said.
No use at all,
said Gordon. You wait and see, said Edward's driver. They brought the train back to the bottom of the hill. Edward came up behind the brake van, ready to push. Beep, beep. I'm ready, said Edward. Boop, boop.
No good,
grumbled Gordon. The guard blew his whistle, and they pulled and pushed as hard as they could.
I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it,
puffed Gordon. I will do it. I will do it. I will do it, puffed Edward.
I can't do it.
I will do it.
I can't do it.
I will do it.
I can't do it.
I will do it, they puffed together.
Hey, that sounded exactly how Mr. Audrey described the two engines when he lived in Box.
Not wrong there, Miku. It actually does. Anyways, Edward pushed and puffed and puffed and pushed as hard as ever he could. And almost before he realized it, Gordon found himself at the top of the hill.
I've done it. I've done it. I've done it,
he said proudly, and forgot all about Edward pushing behind. He didn't wait to say thank you, but ran on so fast that he passed 2 stations before his driver could stop him.
Whoa, he must have been flying down the tracks if he passed 2 stations like that. But that was rude of him to not wait and say thank you to Edward.
Indeed, you're right, Miku. Edward had pushed so hard that when he got to the top, he was out of breath. Gordon ran on so fast that Edward was left behind. The guard waved and waved, but Edward couldn't catch up. He ran on to the next station, and there the driver and fireman said they were very pleased with him. The fireman gave him a nice long drink of water, and the driver said, I'll get my paint out tomorrow and give you a beautiful new coat of blue with red stripes. Then you'll be the smartest engine in the shed.
Now that sounds like a nice reward for a helpful little engine like him.
Yep, sure is.
So, what's our next story for tonight?
I think you might find this one interesting, Miku. This introduces Henry, the third railway engine in this set. And this story is called The Sad Story of Henry.
Wait, how is this story sad?
Well, let's find out, shall we? It starts off with this poem. Once an engine attached to a train was afraid of a few drops of rain. It went into a tunnel and squeaked through its funnel and never came out again. The engine's name was Henry. His driver and fireman argued with him, but he would not move. Because the rain will spoil my lovely green paint and red stripes, he said.
Seriously, he stopped inside the tunnel because of that?
Well, he probably seen something that made him thought like that. I mean, it's silly for him to do so, but I don't like the rain either, and I especially don't like getting my clothes wet, so I'm kind of the same way. But I wouldn't do like what he was if I was an engine. Anyways, the guard blew his whistle till he had no more breath, and waved his flags till his arms ached. But Henry still stayed in the tunnel, and blew steam at him. I'm not going to spoil my lovely green paint and red stripes for you, he said rudely. The passengers came out and argued too, but Henry would not move. Sir Topham Hatt, a director who was on the train, told the guard to get a rope. We will pull you out, he said, but Henry only blew steam at him and made him wet.
He sounds like a very interesting man.
Who, the fat director?
Carrying manners.
What? That's what he is.
Well, that's rude. You don't call someone fat.
Sheesh, I'm sorry. Well, let's just get back to the story, huh?
Yeah, I'm actually more interested in what happens next in this story than arguing.
Well, that's good to hear. Now then. So, they hooked the rope on, and all pulled. Well, except for Sir Topham Hatt. My doctor has forbidden me to pull, he said.
Was that an excuse?
Nah, I think it was probably, because of his health, perhaps.
Oh.
Anyways, They pulled and pulled and pulled, but still Henry stayed in the tunnel. Then they tried pushing from the other end. Sir Topham Hatt said, 1, 2, 3, push! But it did not help. My judge has forbidden me to push, he said. They pushed and pushed and pushed, but still Henry stayed in the tunnel. At last, another train came. The guard waved his red flag and stopped it. The 2 engine drivers, the 2 firemen, and the 2 guards went and argued with Henry. Look, it has stopped raining, they said. Yes, but it will begin again soon, said Henry. And what would become of my green paint with red stripes then?
He's acting like a child.
Agreed. And so they brought the other engine up, and it pushed and puffed and puffed and pushed as hard as ever it could.
Surely this engine will be able to force him out of that tunnel.
But once again, still Henry stayed in the tunnel.
What? How in the world is this engine refusing to leave?
It's simple, Miku. His brakes are on. Anyways, so they gave it up. And they told Henry, we shall leave you there for always and always and always. And you know what they done, Miku?
What? What did they do?
Well, they took up the old rails, built a wall in front of him, and cut a new tunnel. Now, Henry can't get out, and he watches the trains rushing through the new tunnel. He is very sad, because no one will ever see his lovely green paint and red stripes again. But I think he deserves it. Don't you?
That is sad. Poor Henry.
Well, that is why it's called The Sad Story of Henry. And that poem did say that the train never came out again, to which it was actually right. But there actually is hope for Henry.
Really?
Oh yes, it's in our last story for tonight. This last story is called Edward, Gordon, and Henry. This is where Henry actually gets to redeem himself for acting up like he did in the last story. Edward and Gordon often went through the tunnel where Henry was shut up. Edward would say, peep, peep, hello. But Gordon would say, poop, poop, poop.
Serves you right.
Well, at least Edward has sympathy for Henry.
Yeah, he is a kind engine after all. Poor Henry had no steam to answer. His fire had gone out. Soot and dirt from the tunnel roof had spoiled his lovely green paint and red stripes. He was cold and unhappy, and wanted to come out and pull trains too. Gordon always pulls the express. He was proud of being the only engine strong enough to do it. There were many heavy coaches full of important people, like Sir Topham Hatt, who had punished Henry. Gordon was seeing how fast he could go.
Hurry, hurry, hurry.
He panted,
Triggity-chuck, triggity-chuck, triggity-chuck.
said the coaches. Gordon could see Henry's tunnel in front.
In a minute,
He thought,
I'll poop, poop, poop at Henry and rush through and out into the open again.
closer and closer he came. He was almost there when, crack! Whoosh! He was in a cloud of steam and going slower and slower.
Oh my.
His driver stopped the train.
What has happened to me?
Asked Gordon.
I feel so weak.
You've burst your safety valve, said the driver. You can't pull the train anymore,
Oh dear,
said Gordon.
we were going so nicely too. Look at Henry laughing at me.
Gordon made a face at Henry and blew smoke at him. Everyone got out and came to see Gordon. Said Sir Topham Hatt. I never liked these big engines. Always going wrong. Send for another engine at once. While the guard went to find one, they uncoupled Gordon and ran him on a siding out of the way.
I bet he feels miserable.
Yeah, he is.
I'd say he deserves it.
No, I could definitely agree with that one, Miku. The only engine left in the shed was Edward. I'll come and try, he said. Gordon saw him coming.
That's no
He
use.
said,
Edward can't pull the train.
Well, he helped him once, so he can do it again, right?
that is true, but we're just gonna have to find out. So, Edward puffed and pulled and pulled and puffed, but he couldn't move the heavy coaches.
That's odd. How is he strong enough to help Gordon up the hill, but yet isn't strong enough to pull the coaches?
Well, I'd say it's because of his age. He wasn't as young as he used to be back then.
Oh, that makes sense.
I told you so.
Said Gordon rudely.
Why not let Henry try?
Yes, said Sir Topham Hatt, I will. Will you help pull this train, Henry? He asked. Oh, yes, sir, said Henry at once. So Gordon's driver and fireman lit his fire, some plate layers broke down the wall and put back the rails, and when he had steam up, Henry puffed out. He was dirty. His boiler was black, and he was covered with cobwebs.
You!
Oh, I'm stiff. Oh, I'm stiff, he groaned. You better have a run to ease your joints. And find your turntable, said Sir Topham Hatt kindly. Henry came back feeling much better, and they put him in front. Peep, peep, said Edward. I'm ready. Peep, 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 said Henry. So am I. Pull hard, pull hard, pull hard, puffed Edward. We'll do it, we'll do it, we'll do it, puffed Henry. Pull hard, we'll do it, pull hard, we'll do it, pull hard, we'll do it, they puffed together. The heavy coaches jerked and began to move. Slowly at first, then faster and faster. We've done it together. We've done it together. We've done it together, said Edward and Henry. You've done it, hooray! You've done it, hooray! You've done it, hooray! Sang the coaches.
Hooray for Edward and Henry!
Yes, indeed, Miku. Hooray for Edward and Henry. All the passengers were excited. Sir Topham Hatt leaned out of the window to wave at Edward and Henry. But the train was going so fast that his hat blew off into a field where a goat ate it for lunch.
Oopsie!
And they never stopped till they came to the big station at the end of the line. The passengers all got out and said, "Thank you." And Sir Topham Hatt promised Henry a new coat of paint. Would you like blue and red? Yes, please, said Henry. Then I'll be like Edward. Edward and Henry went home quietly, and on their way, they helped Gordon back to the shed. All three are great friends now. And wasn't Henry pleased when he had his new coat of paint? He is very proud of it, as all good engines are. He doesn't mind the rain now, because he knows that the best way to keep his paint nice is to not run into tunnels, but ask his driver to rub him down when the day's work is over. The end. So, how was the first set of stories for tonight, Miku?
They were wonderful. Thank you so much for reading them to me.
You are very welcome, Miku. I'm hoping we can do this more sometime. But for now, I think we ought to get some sleep.
Yeah, I'm feeling very sleepy now.
Alright, just let me get into my sleeping spot. There we go. Ah, nice and comfy. Well, good night, Miku.
Good night, my little one.